Conflicting values. Biblical wisdom for today's lesson. Now all the kings west of the Jordan River heard about what had happened. These were the kings of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, who lived in the hill country, in the western foothills, and along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea as far north as the Lebanon mountains. These kings combined their armies to fight as one against Joshua and the Israelites. But when the people of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they resorted to deception to save themselves. They sent ambassadors to Joshua, loading their donkeys with weathered saddlebags and old patched wineskins. They put on worn-out, patched sandals and ragged clothes, and the bread they took with them was dry and moldy. When they arrived at the camp of Israel at Gilgal, they told Joshua and the men of Israel, "We have come from a distant land to ask you to make a peace treaty with us." The Israelites replied to these Hivites, "How do we know you don't live nearby? For if you do, we cannot make a treaty with you." They replied, "We are your servants." "But who are you?" Joshua demanded. "Where do you come from?" They answered, "Your servants have come from a very distant country. We have heard of the might of the Lord your God and of all he did in Egypt. We have also heard what he did to the two Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, King Sihon of Heshbon and King Og of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth. So our elders and all our people instructed us, take supplies for a long journey. Go meet with the people of Israel and tell them, 'We are your servants, please make a treaty with us.' This bread was hot from the ovens when we left our homes, but now, as you can see, it is dry and moldy. These wineskins were new when we filled them, but now they are old and split open, and our clothing and sandals are worn out from our very long journey." So the Israelites examined their food, but they did not consult the Lord. Then Joshua made a peace treaty with them and guaranteed their safety, and the leaders of the community ratified their agreement with a binding oath. 3 days after making the treaty, they learned that these people actually lived nearby. The Israelites set out at once to investigate and reached their towns in 3 days. The names of these towns were Gibeon, Kephirah, Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim. But the Israelites did not attack the towns, for the Israelite leaders had made a vow to them in the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. The people of Israel grumbled against their leaders because of the treaty. But the leaders replied, "Since we have sworn an oath in the presence of the Lord, the God of Israel, we cannot touch them. This is what we must do. We must let them live, for divine anger would come upon us if we broke our oath." What are the similarities and differences between the story of Rahab and that of the Gibeonites? Why are they meaningful? This chapter of Joshua starts by informing us that the Canaanite kings who usually ruled over small city-states decided to create a coalition against the Israelites. By contrast, the inhabitants of Gibeon decided to establish a covenant with Israel. In order to trick the Israelites into making a covenant with them, the Gibeonites resort to the scheme of being ambassadors from a foreign country. According to Deuteronomy 20 verses 10 to 18, God made a distinction between the Canaanites and people who lived outside the Promised Land. The word translated as craftily or cunningly can be used with a positive meaning denoting prudence and wisdom, Proverbs 1 verse 4 and Proverbs 8 verses 5 and 12, or negatively implying criminal intent, Exodus 21 verse 14, 1 Samuel 23 verse 22, and Psalms 83 verse 3. In the case of the Gibeonites, behind their treacherous action lies a less destructive intent of self-preservation. The speech of the Gibeonites is strikingly similar to that of Rahab. Both acknowledge the power of Israel's God, and both acknowledge that Israel's success is not simply a human feat. In contrast to other Canaanites, they do not rebel against Yahweh's plan to grant the land to the Israelites, and they admit that the Lord himself is driving these nations out before Israel. The news of the deliverance from Egypt and the victories over Sihon and Og prompt both Rahab and the Gibeonites to seek an alliance with the Israelites. However, instead of fully acknowledging their willingness to surrender to the God of Israel, as Rahab does, the Gibeonites resort to a subterfuge. The law of Moses made provisions for learning the will of God in such cases as this, Numbers 27 verses 16 to 21. Joshua should have inquired for the will of the Lord and avoided the deception of the Gibeonites. The fundamental duty of a theocratic leader, and of any Christian leader, is to seek God's will. 1 Chronicles 28 verse 9, 2 Chronicles 15 verse 2, 2 Chronicles 18 verse 4, and 2 Chronicles 20 verse 4. By neglecting it, The Israelites were compelled either to violate the fundamental conditions of conquering the land or to break an oath made in the name of the Lord, which was equally binding. How often have you found yourself struggling between what appears to be two conflicting biblical values?